Good afternoon, Howard Wiig, Code Green, ThinkTech Hawaii. I am honored this afternoon to have as my guests Elsie Love and Jeffrey Kim, co-leaders of Citizens Climate Lobby. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's begin by describing generally what Citizens Climate Lobby is. Because there's a heck of a lot of environmental organizations out there, jillions of them. But I gather this is recent and it has a particular mission. Is that a good summary?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Very good summary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Citizens Climate Lobby is, I feel like, a pretty unique environmental organization that we advocate for a very specific cause. We advocate for something called Carbon Fee and Dividend, which is a form of, carbon pricing, I guess, would be a general way to talk about it. The organization was founded by Marshall Saunders, who in 2006 actually learned about climate change after watching Inconvenient Truth. And he was so moved by it, he actually watched it several times in a row in theaters, and and just really wanted to do something about it, and felt like there were no solutions out there that really address climate change on a broad scale, other than the kind of suggestions he was hearing in the movie, like changing light bulbs or driving an electric car. So he set out to create Citizens Climate Lobby, and based it off of an organization that he was a part of called Results, which was an organization that advocated for basically action to address poverty, and he adopted the model from Results, which I guess used a form of citizens lobbying, because he felt and he felt like there weren't a lot of people who were trying to address climate change that were actually doing it in an organized fashion, and using the skills and the tools that they could to actually engage their legislators. So that's kind of the basics behind how Citizens Climate Lobby started.
Okay, so I'm gathering that it's politically oriented. You use the word lobby, legislators. Is that how you're trying to reach?
So Citizens Climate Lobby is a group that's comprised of volunteers, and the aim of they're less than 20 paid staff, so it's almost all volunteers. And the aim is to empower citizens to take action on climate change. So to connect citizens and volunteers with their members of Congress and to advocate for climate action.
So this is federally oriented rather than locally oriented, or?
That's correct, and there are actually, so there are about 290 active chapters, and most of these chapters are in the US in congressional districts, but there are more and more popping up actually overseas as well. So in Australia, India, Canada, Bangladesh, a number of other countries, there are similar groups that fall under the Citizens Climate Lobby umbrella that are lobbying to their own governments for a similar policy that we're advocating for here in the US.
And that policy is?
Yeah, so we can go into that.
We'll get right down to the meat of it.
We can use the slides.
You know what, before we do that, let's introduce you guys personally.
Sure.
Do you do anything besides Citizens Climate Lobby, or?
Yes, I guess I can go first. I do a mix of things, so it's a little difficult to explain, but I finished my bachelor's in political science a few years ago from Hamilton College, a small school on the East Coast. And since then, I've been doing a mix of conservation and education-related things. And ultimately, I'm planning to go into international conservation and development, and I aim to focus on helping rural communities adapt to climate change. So that's the gist of it. Right now, I'm applying to grad school, taking the GRE, taking classes, and doing this volunteer work for Citizens Climate Lobby.
And what grad school are you applying for? Is it UH here, or?
No, I wish it was, but I'm applying to some very specific programs through which I can focus on international conservation and development. And one is at the University of Montana, one's at University of Colorado, Boulder, and the other is at the Yale School of Forestry.
Interesting. Yeah, we had some Yale School of Forestry people come down and help the Big Island.
Oh, okay.
with their energy policy many, many years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very bright young people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jeffrey?
Yeah, so currently I'm studying, I'm in the Natural Resource Environmental Management program at UH Manoa, and I'm, yeah, my goal is to eventually go to law school and advocate for the environment. And
That's the one type of lawyer we do need. Right?
right? Yeah, the type that doesn't get paid quite as well as the others.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and otherwise, I actually I play music around town. I play jazz at a club called Jazz Minds and Dragon Upstairs.
That's in Kaka'ako.
One of them's, yeah, well, Dragon Upstairs is actually in Chinatown, and then Jazz Minds is down, like, basically Waikiki. Yeah.
Does the name Grant Carvalho mean anything to you?
Not sure.
No? Okay, he's a nephew of mine and a piano player. All
Oh,
kinds of
okay.
big gigs all over the place, yeah.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I'm kind of new to the scene, so, yeah.
Mhm. So, multi-talented, multifaceted. Yeah. Okay, so we want to get the climate change word out to Congress and to the international equivalents of Congress. So I think, where is this headquartered, DC or New York or?
There's actually kind of two headquarters, I guess. There's one in California, and then there's one on the East Coast as well. But ultimately, like Elsie was saying, this is really more of a volunteer effort. Yeah, we don't really rely as much on having a centralized office or anything like that.
How about training? Didn't they send you to one of the headquarters to get training in lobbying or the issues or?
Well, so on the Citizens Climate Lobby website, you can make a profile, and there are a lot of training exercises you can do. There are a lot of webinars. There's a ton of information. And then actually, the event that is going on this Saturday, this Climate Change Solutions Workshop, this is actually going to be an official...
Look at yourself and get it. Okay.
There it is.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, each group has what's called a group start workshop, where someone is going to come out from the mainland and do an official training. So we've been functioning as a group for a while now, but we haven't had this official training yet. So that's what's going to happen this coming weekend.
Good. I speak as somebody who's been politically involved forever, and being politically involved is a fine, fine, fine art. There's a whole lot of do's and a whole lot of don't do's.
Absolutely.
And the don't do's are just as important, because you step on a politician's toe and he's going to remember it, or the staff people are going to remember it.
Absolutely.
Oh, here she comes again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hide. Lock the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does your training focus then on the lobbying itself, or just getting up with the facts, or?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, the training is designed for, generally geared toward the newcomer. So yeah, it does go through the process of educating somebody about what we do and why we do it. But yeah, then we go into the methodology of our actions and just the details of that. So yeah, both of those things.
Yeah. So I know you have some slides, and we don't have a whole lot of time left in this segment. Is this a good time to get rolling on slides?
We can save one for the next.
Next slide.
Next segment. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we don't have to break it up.
Okay. So, what individual question to both of you? What motivated you most? I mean, you're dedicating a heck of a lot of your time and energy. You could be out surfing, earning money, all kinds of things. But
Right.
you're doing this. What's both of your personal motivations?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, for me, I was, involved in. I kind of started out in terms of activism, pursuing sort of criminal justice. I guess based activist pursuits, and like specifically, I was working with a an organization that was trying to get a supermax prison shut down in Southern Illinois, because I was living in Chicago at the time. And I mean, it's completely solitary confinement only there, and you know, and I find that to be, you know, very inhumane. But yeah, as I kind of delved deeper and deeper into more and more pursuits, I just felt like, you know, I really wanted to find what the, yeah, I guess, you know, the most effective use of my time would be as an activist, and yeah, essentially find what I thought would be the greatest need in the world. And yeah, and it became clear to me that climate change, you know, was that. And I mean, if we don't have, ultimately, if we don't have a planet to safely live on, then you know, none of these other matters are really going to be
Precisely.
Yeah, are really going to matter anymore. So
yeah, I call it getting to the root cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So that's pretty much how I got to Citizens Climate Lobby. And same thing like Marshall Saunders. I mean, you know, I searched for, you know, months and months for what I would consider a legitimate solution to the problem, and I really couldn't find anything that seemed to address the problem in time. And until I found Citizens Climate Lobby, yeah.
So I do have a background in political science, and so that does make this organization a good match for my interests. And I came to it because I've been reading a ton about climate change just in my free time, reading books, articles, et cetera. And as I mentioned, I'm very concerned about how climate change is going to affect communities in the developing world. And I've spent a good deal of time in both India and in Nepal. But I ultimately want to work on climate change adaptation overseas, but I see the need of taking action in our own country.
Absolutely. And before we go to the break, just very briefly, 2 books, Silent Spring and The Population Bomb. Do either book mean anything to both of you? Or?
I don't know The Population Bomb, but
yeah,
of course
I don't know.
Silent
Silent Spring,
yeah.
Rachel Carson, yeah.
Interesting, yeah. It was written by a Stanford professor named Paul Ehrlich.
I've heard of him, yeah.
And, okay. We have a tweet. Okay, Mark Ward. How do you effectively lobby when you have an entire political party that denies the validity and science of climate change? Now,
we could talk a lot about this.
We definitely could, so we
save
might
it
want
for after
exactly
the break.
that might.
There's a lot we can say to that.
Absolutely.
yeah, why don't we go to the break and then we will, I'm sure this will come right up here.
Great.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Howard Wiig, Code Green, ThinkTech Hawaii, back in a minute.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. You know, Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Hi, my name's Cindy Matsuki, and I host the show High Growth with HTDC on ThinkTech Hawaii. This is the show where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there's so many things going on in Hawaii and more people should know about them. So this is the program that you can come and find out about all the things happening in Hawaii. And this show also airs on Olelo 54 along with ThinkTech Hawaii. And it broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. So don't forget, check out the show Tuesday, 3 p.m. every other week. High Growth with HTDC. Thanks.
We're back again. ThinkTech Hawaii, Code Green, Howard Wiig, Jeffrey Kim, and Elsie Love from the Climate Action Lobby. And we will start this segment by, I think you brought some slides, and we have some tweet questions to answer, but we'll partially answer that with the slide, and then we'll go into the individual questions.
Sounds great.
So if we could have the slides, is that right? Carbon Fee and Dividend.
All right, so yeah, I'll just take us through the basics of what our proposal is about. So yeah, you know, it's Carbon Fee and Dividend. Yeah, it's okay. So there's obviously 2 parts, the fee and the dividend. The first part would just put a $15 per ton of CO2 emissions fee on on CO2 emissions, and then raise that fee by $10 a year. So it's very simple. And then the second part is the dividend. So in order to make sure that people are not economically disadvantaged by the rising cost of energy, we decided to have a dividend portion of it, and 100% of that revenue is returned to American households, and it's returned on an equitable basis, meaning that everybody gets the same amount. It's an averaged amount. So whether you have like close to zero carbon footprint or the biggest carbon footprint, you get the same amount. So as a result, actually, 2/3 of Americans will receive as much or more than they paid in increased energy cost, and that's designed to protect the poor and the middle class. And then we have something called border adjustments, which charge an import fee on products from countries that, as it says, don't have a carbon fee. That's to, number one, reimburse the industries in our country that are exporting to other countries, and make sure that the U.S. stays competitive economically. And on kind of a larger scale, goal is to encourage other countries to adopt similar pricing plan, because if a country adopts a pricing plan that already meets our standards, then they will not be charged the fee. And it's in a country's best interest to have their own plan so that the money goes back to their country opposed to us.
And they can adjust it to their particular circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so before I go into these graphs were created from a study conducted by Regional Economic Modeling Incorporated, REMI for short. So it was an independent study that looked at what would happen to the U.S. economy if a very similar proposal to ours were enacted. So the study they did looked at what would happen when a starting at $10 per ton of carbon fee were levied, and then that fee increased by $10 each year, and all the money was returned. And so the results were very good. You can see the environmental benefits here, and by 2035, our emissions level would be at, I believe, 50% of.
Yeah, it would be at less than 50%. Less than 50% of 1990 levels.
Less than 50% of 1990 levels. And then the blue, so that's the yellow line, and then the blue line is the baseline if business as usual. So we can go to the next slide. And so not only are there environmental benefits, there are also economic benefits of such a proposal, which is very important because now, as we're seeing, many people who are opposed to taking climate action argue that the economy will be destroyed if we do anything about climate change. And actually, the REMI study proved that the economy will actually improve. So first, this graph shows, can we go back? Thank you. So the monthly dividend, this is a monthly dividend that a family with 2 adults and 2 children would receive. And so children get half the amount that an adult would get. And so you can see the dividend is increasing quite a bit. And as Jeff mentioned, this REMI study found that 2/3 of American households would get back in the dividend either as much or more than they were having to spend on increased energy. So it won't hurt low-income households. It will actually help them. So we can go on to the next slide. So GDP growth. So since this proposal will spur the creation of green jobs in the shift to green technology, and will also give consumers more money in their pocket. Basically, the 2/3 of Americans who are getting more back in their dividend, they'll have more money in their pocket. And so GDP will actually grow by 1.375 trillion over the baseline by 2035. And the baseline is a scenario where we don't enact such a policy.
Wow.
Job creation. So this policy will also spur job creation. It will help create 2.8 million jobs over the baseline by 2035. And so that's about 1% more than would be created otherwise. And that's due to the same factors that will prompt GDP growth, the shift to green energy and consumers having more money to spend. Next slide. So how does carbon fee and dividend compare to other options? So in this question, we can start getting at the question that was tweeted at us. So going down the list, right now, the whole society is paying for carbon emissions. We're paying for it through subsidies. We're paying for it through costs incurred on health, through disasters. We used to see, I read that we used to see about 2 disasters each year that cost $1 million, or maybe it was $1 billion in the 80s, and now we're seeing about 10 a year. So the whole society is paying right now for carbon emissions. And so then one option would be regulation, and the GOP, or I guess just people in general who do not like to see big government, don't like this kind of solution because it means government's getting involved in industry's business, they're regulating tightly, and so that is generally not a very politically palatable option, and it can also be more expensive to run. Oh, can we go back to that chart actually? Thank you. And then cap and trade. So cap and trade is another carbon pricing scheme. Our proposal is also a carbon pricing scheme, but they work a little differently. Cap and trade, or emissions trading, is where the cap, so the total amount of emissions is determined, and then the market determines the price. And conservatives generally don't like this because it means that there is more government that has to regulate the emissions, and liberals generally don't like it because there's concern that because the cost is volatile, it can hurt poorest people more. Then there's a carbon tax, and this is what we just call a plain vanilla carbon tax, where the revenue is not returned to households. And you can think of this as a sin tax, so like a tax on cigarettes, a tax on alcohol, and it's very effective, but it can slow down the economy. And if the government is keeping that tax, then that grows the government, and that is not palatable to people who favor a free market. And so then there's our solution, the carbon fee and dividend proposal. It doesn't grow the government at all. It's a market-based solution, and it works, as we've seen from the REMI study.
Wow.
So that's the gist of it. We can tackle that
yeah.
tweet in more detail now.
Wow.
Sure, and something else to add on to that. I mean, I guess, you know, Mark, who sent us that tweet, might still be asking, well, you know, how do you deal with the fact that there are still a lot of deniers? And I guess, you know, it makes me think of a cartoon actually that we use in our slides, that just all these lists of positive effects from basically going to transitioning to renewable energy and addressing climate change. And you know, and there's a comment from somebody in the audience who says, well, what if it's a big hoax and, you know, we build a better world for nothing? You know, so I feel like that is definitely one way to sort of address that question is, you know, no matter how you look at it, this is a win-win situation. It will grow the economy, as we said, you know, and whether we do believe climate change is happening or not, it will keep our, you know, skies cleaner, and yeah, I mean, there's really no disbenefit that can come out of it.
I should also mention this is a nonpartisan group, and there are on our advisory board, for example, George Shultz is on our advisory board, the former Secretary of State under Ronald Reagan. Also, Bob Inglis, the former South Carolina Republican representative, is on our board. So there's a strong effort within this group to bring both sides to the table, bring everyone into the conversation, and focus on solutions.
Wow.
And even beyond political parties, there's also climate scientist Katharine Hayhoe, who is, you know, kind of especially famous for being both a climate scientist and an evangelical Christian. So we also we also have representatives from the religious community as well who can speak on this.
Interesting. Well, your slides generated a heck of a lot of questions from me, but
Yeah.
let's get to the next tweet question here.
I think that was it.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
I think that was.
No, the videos on Planned Parenthood are false.
I think that's
that's
not related to
yeah.
us.
We don't really deal with
That's
that.
maybe from
Oh,
the
that
West.
was previous.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have anything to say on that.
Okay. Well, we do have a little time left in this segment. What is a ton of carbon? Can you? It's abstract even to me, and I'm supposedly in this industry here.
So I can't tell you what it looks like, but I can tell you what the fee would look like at the pump. So $15 per ton of CO2 emissions looks like a 15-cent increase per gallon at the pump.
Okay.
That's what I can tell you. I don't know if
Yeah.
you can build on that.
I think that's the best we could probably do to
yeah.
make it tangible. Yeah.
Yeah. The other possibility would be to get a kilowatt hour of electricity, and
Yeah.
but of
Sure.
course it depends how that electricity is generated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still, on the mainland, still most electricity comes from coal, so that would probably be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so about 15 cents per gallon. Jobs, 2.8 million jobs by 2030. That is impressive. What kind of jobs might these be?
So there'll be definitely a lot of jobs. Actually, not only in just the green sector, that would naturally come out of a proposal like this, but actually also in things that are kind of just local and more ordinary, like restaurant jobs, health services, and yeah, I mean, I guess one way to think of it is that because of what we call revenue recycling, because people are putting these dividends checks back into the economy, it grows a lot of local economy,
Sure.
and people are spending their money more on entertainment, eating out, and things that they might have been saving up for, like even like healthcare, and that that they've been putting off. So so those are some examples of the kinds of jobs we would be able to see.
Okay, well, a specific Hawaii example is PV installations.
Exactly.
Where it was a few years ago when the PV was taking off great guns, and before Hawaiian Electric felt compelled to put the brakes on it, 28% of all construction jobs in Hawaii were PV installers. And we might point out that construction jobs are good paying jobs. These guys are
Yes.
not making minimum wage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
These are skilled people who are getting up on a roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green energy generally requires more upkeep and more labor than traditional fossil fuels.
Okay, and I've got more questions, but let's take a break before that, and hopefully we can get through a lot of it. We got so much material to cover here. ThinkTech Hawaii, Howard Wiig, Code Green, back in a minute.
Aloha, this is Elsie Hagen from ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show is a bi-weekly show on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. We invite interesting people, entrepreneurs, fascinating leaders who contribute to the social economic well-being of our state. Please tune in to my show, Business Education Spotlight, ThinkTech Hawaii, bi-weekly, Thursday, 3 to 4 p.m. Aloha.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Hello again, Howard Wiig, Code Green, ThinkTech Hawaii. Elsie Love and Jeff Kim, the Citizens Climate Lobby, and they are the co-leaders of the Hawaii chapter. Let me start with a question about the weather, the effect of climate change, and specifically global warming, on the weather. I've lived here almost all my life. You can look at me and see that I've been around the sun a few times. And I know what Hawaii weather is all about. And that hot, sticky, hurricane-prone spell that we had a couple of months ago, that is not Hawaii. I speak from experience, and I monitor the climate informally also because I help formulate energy codes, and energy codes are very climate dependent. A couple of years ago, we went through an entire summer without reaching 90 degrees. And generally, in a typical August 4th is generally the hottest day of the year, we might get to 92 or 3 times, and that's it. This past spell, we were going up to 91, 92. I think we even reached 93, just day after day after that. And you put on top of that the humidity that we,
Yeah.
And then you ask, well, what is the cause of this? Combination of El Nino, which always does this, but this was El Nino on steroids. And El Nino normally produces the warm water that drifts east across the Pacific. But this water, and I have had a couple of swimmer friends tell me, you get into the water these days, and it's like going into a bathtub. And specifically, it said typical Hawaii offshore water in the summer is about 81 degrees. They measured it at 86 degrees. And as we know, the warmer the ocean, the more hurricane prone an area is, which is why the Caribbean and Florida and so forth. Go into the ocean off of Florida, and you're startled at how warm the water is. And why does the water get extra warm? There's more sun beating down on it. Why is there more sun beating down on it? Because the whole globe is warming. And so we dodged those hurricanes. But the Big Island actually got one. It just hit the, God bless Mauna Loa. It hit the Puna region, got stalled by Mauna Loa. So that cost was not horrendous, but it's not if, it's when a hurricane hits us in Honolulu. It's not going to be a pleasant event. And talk about cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the relationship between El Nino and climate change is being investigated by a number of scientists right now, and the exact relationship is not clear. But a recent study predicted that it won't increase the frequency of El Nino itself, but will increase the magnitude. So we'll be seeing these super El Ninos, these extreme El Ninos, I think more like every 13 years rather than every 23 years as it was in the past. So there's definitely a relationship. The exact nature of it, though, isn't clear. But it's being felt all over the world right now.
Well, our producer says that she found a great video from your website. Can you run that?
Great, yeah.
Zuri? Yeah. What in the world is this here? Yeah, no, go ahead. I like the music. video, so obviously this is one of the many, many activities of the Citizens Climate Lobby, is producing videos like this.
I wouldn't say that's one of our primary activities, but yeah, I mean, we definitely have, we have some people who do work on videos to get the message out through a digital medium, but yeah, that's not, I wouldn't say that's one of our primary objectives. Yeah.
Well, one of the prime ways of reaching, especially young people, is through videos like that.
Certainly.
Short, sweet, simple, to the point, the short attention span and all that sort of stuff. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good stuff. Hurricanes, what else is affecting Hawaii climate-wise?
The ocean.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, though, you know.
The rising ocean level.
And
Sure.
acidification.
Acidification, absolutely. And I mean, acidification not only affects marine life that, you know, at the level that we're used to seeing, you know, like fish and dolphins or whales, but also at the, I guess, like at plankton as well, you know, at the very smallest level. And I mean, and these are the kind of species that are most vulnerable to ocean acidification, and they're also, you know, basically the most primary part of the food chain and for the ocean. So yeah, it's very significant for the health of the ocean as well.
And let's look at the reefs, coral.
Coral
I
bleaching,
like to call coral the sort of the sperm bank of all marine life, because that's where so much activity happens, and you know that's small, and then it just goes up and up and up and up the food chain.
Yeah.
And coral is bleaching. Why is coral bleaching? Because the sun's hotter. And then we look at the rising sea levels, and we think, oh, that's abstract so far. No, it's not.
No.
Because we're getting an influx of micronations now.
Yeah.
Why do they
Okay.
have to come here? Because the highest point on their atolls is only 6-7 feet, and they're growing crops. But when the sea level rises, the bottom roots of those crops get affected. They can't.
Yeah, and
produce
I mean,
food
we could see
anymore.
that here too. We've got our aquifer, and we could see salt water intruding into there as the seas continue to rise too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly when, but as the sea level rises, it will be more likely to intrude into our aquifer here.
Absolutely, yeah. And our aquifer goes down pretty far.
And a lot of, oh, sorry, I was just
go
gonna say,
ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to also share that, you know, a lot of sea level rise predictions kind of tend to look at what might happen within a century or so, that significant change might happen by 2100. But actually a recent study by Dr. James Hansen, who's you know, one of the most, I guess, renowned climate scientists, and he's actually on our advisory board. And he's also one of the, I think he's the first person to speak in front of Congress about climate change and really, you know, like kind of actually bring that term into the consciousness.
Yeah, he's a real pioneer.
And his recent study, most recent study, actually predicts up to 10 feet of sea level rise within 50 years. So, you know, it's definitely not nearly as conservative as most of the other predictions, but at the same time, you know, he's been on the forefront of predicting what will happen to our climate over the years, and it's definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah. And then we talk about economics in Hawaii. The prime economic driver is tourism.
Sure.
Yep.
The nexus of tourism is in Waikiki.
Yes.
Waikiki is not that far above sea level.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So what do we wrap up with here?
Well, with the few minutes remaining, I do want to mention an effort, you know, on the local level. And this is not actually directly related with Citizens Climate Lobby, because Citizens Climate Lobby is so specifically focused on the federal effort. But yeah, some of us in Hawaii would like to pursue an initiative to enact something like a carbon fee and dividend here. You know, a carbon pricing plan. And we may want to approach it from the angle of even amending the existing barrel tax to have it increase in price every year, and yeah, have a dividend system that goes along with it. But one way or another, yeah, having some kind of pricing option for Hawaii, I think, is definitely imperative. Not only because we are so dependent on fossil fuels for our energy, but also because we have the momentum. I think,
Absolutely,
especially with the recent 100% renewable 2045 bill, or by 2045 bill that was passed, and Governor Ige, rejecting liquid natural gas, and I mean just our track record as being such a green state, and yeah, even I think recently we were ranked #1 in solar generation per capita.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so kind of like I mean definitely we need to work on the federal level, but also I think we need to do what we can at the state level as well, and kind of like I like to think of sort of make an analogy to the way that same-sex marriage was passed on the federal level, that I feel like it would not have happened nearly as quickly, or maybe at all by this time, if we didn't have these state-by-state efforts first to kind of build the momentum and show the country that it can be done. And,
Absolutely, yeah. And we have, as you well know, the highest electricity prices in the nation by a factor of 3.
Yes.
Yeah. And and we have the greatest solar regime in the nation. We have a great wind regime thanks to our mountains. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up pretty soon. Elsie, anything you would want to announce?
Yeah, I can announce this again.
Any parting comments here?
All right, so we are hosting an event this coming Saturday, October 10th, and it will be at UH in Sinclair Library, and it will start at 12. And this is a workshop if you're interested in learning more about climate change solutions and the work that we're doing and how to garner skills to effectively lobby for climate change action.
And is there a phone number or a website or an email address that we can offer?
Certainly. There's our email address is honolulu@citizensclimatelobby.org, and phone number. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we don't really have a centralized office, right? So I just offer up my phone number, which is 808-429-5590. And yeah, and then the website is just citizensclimatelobby.org.
Beautiful. Okay, we've got about 30 seconds left. One last pitch.
Let's keep the momentum going.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been a lot of great momentum for climate action these last few months, building up towards the talks in Paris. So let's just keep this momentum going and hope that we can get a good deal.
And I saw on your announcement that you're giving away a lunch also. Wow.
Yeah, there will be a lunch at our event.
If that doesn't get
it's
people,
vegan,
nothing
which
will.
is-
Yeah.
So lower carbon footprint. And actually, if we have a couple seconds, last thing that Mark's tweet kind of inspired me to say is that in terms of addressing conservatives and how they might want to, approach dealing with climate change and finding solutions, recently actually a resolution was proposed or sponsored by 11 House Republicans saying that, explicitly saying that climate change is a man-made problem and something needs to be done about it. And, this is, in my opinion, a really historic moment.
That's a breakthrough, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is definitely, the tides are changing, in my opinion, and there's momentum from all sides happening.
Tides are changing. I like that analogy. As in.
Yes.
So, on that cheery note, we wrap up. Code Green, ThinkTech Hawaii, Howard Wiig. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Howard.
Ah.
Yeah.